Hello and welcome to Kayla's World. I'm Kayla Canoe, author, YouTuber, gamer, and aerialist. And today's video is all about writing habits I learned in school, specifically in high school, which also carried on into college. And this is going to include the good and the bad, the very, very bad, in which I had to learn how to break these habits because who buddy did they make writing a challenge. So yeah, we are just going to go ahead and get right into it. And you know what? I am gonna start with the good. So there are the one good thing that I did learn in school has to do with formatting, and that is using the traditional Times New Roman font, doing the whole double spacing for your paragraph style, and the 12-point font. Now, these guys aren't necessarily like perfection in regards to, like, I'm sure that different places that want you to submit things want different things, but they're pretty standard, and that is honestly what I use for doing my drafts, for what I send to my editor, because having that space, it's a lot easier to read, and it works really well. So that is one thing, well, I guess that's three things that I did learn in school that was really good in relation to writing habits. There are actually some other ones that I learned, and to be fair, I don't know if this is just like a preference thing, but I am very much a fan of, and for whatever reason I learned this, but I will not start back-to-back paragraphs with the same word. So if one paragraph started with the blah blah blah, the second paragraph or the next paragraph underneath it will not start with the word the. It will not start with the same name. It will just, every paragraph will have a different word starting it. I mean, now obviously it might be a couple paragraphs away. One starts with the, and then the next one starts with the name, and then the next one might start with the again. But for whatever reason, I learned to never start the paragraphs with the exact same word. It came from school, because God knows where else that could have come from. But I would consider that to be a good habit because it gives you variety and helps prevent that repetitiveness. Along those same lines, I actually do the same thing with sentences. So unless it's very much like a specific character has a specific style of speaking, but really it's more so for like an impact thing, I will not repeat the same word at the start of sentences that are back to back. So I do it occasionally for like a dramatic effect, but for the most part, each one of my sentences starts with a different word. I don't know why I learned that or how I learned that, but I did learn that, and it prevents repetition. So that was one of the good things that I learned writing habit wise. Now we're gonna get into the bad. And when I say bad, I mean that this really messed me up in a time consumption kind of way. Okay, so some of the things that I learned in school. One, to double space at the end of a sentence. So anytime I typed a period, I automatically double spaced afterwards. Not sure why I was taught that, or if that was specific for a specific style of like research writing or what it was, but I was always taught to double space at the end of a sentence. And thankfully, my lovely software engineer partner taught me that I can just control find and find double spaces and change them to single spaces, because I obviously did that throughout my entire draft, and my novel is over 100,000 words. So can you imagine going through and deleting that extra space on every single sentence? Yeah, that would be a tragedy. Um, a real big tragedy. So that is one bad habit that I had, was to double space at the end of every sentence. And when I say habit, I mean I would just do it even after having realized that it's not supposed to be there. Like I would just like automatically double tap that space bar. Um, but yeah, so that was a habit I had to break because yeah, you don't need double spaces at the end of your sentence when you're writing a novel. Um, the second thing, very similar, and I learned the hard way on this one, guys, is using the tab button to indent the beginning of your paragraphs. So that was another one of those habits where it was like every time I'd hit enter, I'd hit tab and start my new paragraph. Um, and truth be told, I actually did sit down and went through my entire novel and removed the tab spacing after the fact. Now, this might be one of those things where I probably could have done that control search thing and changed the tab spacing to no space. Not sure. I don't know if I didn't know it at the time or whatnot, but I remember going through my entire novel and removing the tab spacing from every single paragraph. Which is time consuming if you guys hadn't guessed for a 100,000 word novel. Yeah, and since then I have learned that, you know, you can actually just format your text when you're writing to where it automatically indents the first line of your paragraph. And the great thing about that is you can just remove that formatting later before sending it to a formatter or before whatever you need to do with it. Whereas if you tab space, you can't just remove that space without going in and manually removing that space. So, yeah, that was a very bad habit that I learned the hard way not to do. So, don't hit that tab button for spacing. Just use the programming's formatting abilities, because then you can just turn off that formatting and not have to manually fix it. Okay, and the last bad habit that I learned in school, and honestly, this probably has to do with style of writing. I probably learned more technical writing. I have 2 engineering degrees, so it is possible that this was specific for research papers and things like that. But in school, I learned that in your writing, you should not use contractions. So have not, could not, would not, should not, did not, all of those fun things. I obviously spelled them all out, full contractions. But you know, when you're writing a novel, especially we're talking fiction novels, to make it easier for the reader to do that flow, you would just change the contraction. You would use the contraction. So I learned to not use contractions, that like contractions were forbidden, and they're not. Use your contractions. Use them, use them, use them. Luckily, I did not have to go through and change all of these. Bless my editor's heart, because she did that for me because I did line edits. And she went through during the line editing phase and made all of my non-contracted words contracted. But hey, now I know, and in the future we'll be using contractions for my words. Another thing that I learned, and I'm gonna assume this was in school, and apparently it was not a truth, was that anytime you have a word that ends with 2 S's, and you would like, and in the instance of using it possessively to where you'd have an apostrophe S. So like if one of my characters' name is Jess, Jess, and so if I say Jess's Bible or Jess's dress, something that belongs to Jess, I, for whatever reason, and I think this is a style thing, believed that you just put the apostrophe there. Because there's already 2 S's, that a third S was too clunky and unnecessary, that you just put the apostrophe there and it's assumed that it is saying Jess's. But apparently that's not the case. You can definitely add that S there, and I think it's a style thing. I think some people choose to not put the S there because it's too many S's, and other people choose to put the S there. I was recommended to put the S there because sometimes when people read it, they don't always read it the right way if you don't include the S. So, yeah, just another fun habit that I learned to have to correct. But yeah, so there you have it. That is the good, the bad, and the oh so tragic of what I learned in high school / college in regards to my writing. Don't make the same mistakes as me. Don't double space after your sentences. Don't use that tab button. Like, just don't do it, because that was a freaking nightmare. It really was. But yeah, Times New Roman, double spacing, 12-point font. That's good. That's great. Use it. It's awesome. But yeah, that is all that I have for you guys today. If you guys like these types of video, let me know by hitting that like button. Leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos on Wednesdays, and I do live streams on Mondays, with the exception of next week, which is like the first week of March 2021. I will be on vacation, so there won't be any live streams or videos because I will be on vacation. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Don't forget, if you want to be the first to know about my book news and my new releases, subscribe to my newsletter that is linked below. If you would like to know what kind of writer I am and check out my writing, check out Project Infinity. It is completely free to read, also linked below. And if you guys don't already know, my debut adult dark fantasy novel, The Reckoning, is coming out on April 14th, which is my 30th birthday. So, you know, if you want to get me something special, just buy my book, because, yeah, it's awesome. All of the links for the pre-orders for the ebooks are listed below. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed your time here in Kayla's World.